I am here to uplift, support, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version you are meant to be. Best version of you, that is, not just like me. All right, let's see if this works. I knew I should have done this beforehand. Okay, that ain't working. Ooh, it is a mercurial day. I'm just gonna say that I got my car back from the shop. It was in the shop because, well, it got hit. Somebody backed into me. So, fixing things and returning back to normal. All right, there's a lot I want to say. I only got a small window of time. My dad's not here. Let me just say, if you watched my last video, you got to see me in my vulnerable state of living with my father. I love my dad. But when you're in a cramped, small environment that's not made for two people, this space is really tiny. And what I've been working on, I'm very easily distracted by the presence of another person, because when you try to do a little studying and someone's talking to you in the background, I mean, these are just the dynamics that family brings, right? And so I have my challenges, which I expect every single one of you do too. There are times when you feel you need privacy, you need your space. It's normal. We're human. We are meant to engage, we are meant to interact, we are meant to come together, but there are moments when we need our peace, our quiet, our solitude, not our isolation, but our going within and reconnecting to self. And with the eclipse energy, I'm just saying that for me, personally, it's like the Tasmanian devil came in and just swirled up and stirred up a whole bunch of ish. Am I the only one? If you are also feeling it, just know that means big changes are rumbling. Because the more you feel it, whether you're conscious or unconscious, the more stuff is stirring for your attention, for you to address it, for you to recognize where you're at. Because life is showing up where you're at. And I am the first one to admit it. I am the first one to express it, because I know myself. If I don't address it, it will express itself later. Great example, when I picked up my car, I started to look at it and I saw that it wasn't as clean in the areas where they actually did the repair. I was a little concerned. And I thought, I want to say something. Do I say something? I mean, you're paying for it, right? Am I too picky? Because society and the whole, oh, just accept what you get. You're lucky you got what you got. Like there's this humdrum of melodrama and doom and gloom that just like, ugh, it's ick. That to me is ick. If you bring something in to a shop for repair or a service, never feel guilty for expressing your distaste. I'm going to turn the music off because I'm always listening to classical music. When you are unhappy about something, speak up. Speak up. Speaking up does not mean you're a bad person. It does not make you picky. It does not make you, negative. It doesn't make you anything that somebody would have to try to, and I'll say have to. Sometimes, people will say, oh, you're to this, you're to that, because you speak up for yourself. But if you're not an advocate for yourself, who else is going to be? This is natural. Oh, that's why. We're having all sorts of little flubbies here, so bear with me. This is the world we live in. When I look back over my life and I see how the power of suggestion, which is really what this theme is, we have all been influenced from our environments, whether it was watching your parents. Your parents were your first version of God that you ever experienced. So the admiration for these two beings that brought you into this world is natural. That's our nature, to see them as gods, because they provide for us. They respond to us. Doesn't matter how, but that's the version that we see, is like, wow, you're able to take care of me and do all these things. And when you're a baby, you're learning how to communicate your needs. And the parents are learning how to understand what your communication is about those needs. And some are good and some are bad, and it's just all part of the life that unfolds for us that influences and molds us, as well as the external world, the noise chatter, the TV, the education system, indoctrination, slave system is what I call it, but everything influences us. Your work environment, your peers at school, the biggest influence in your formative years, for sure. And so when I look over my past and my history, I remember I've had these conversations recently around how back when I was first in the workforce, it was like this whole independence because I can work. That was an influence, like the idea that I should want to work. It was kind of like, oh, well, you don't have money at home because you have to rely on your parents. So it's this whole idea that I can't wait till I'm an adult so I can get a job and I can make my own money and I can make my own decisions. Like it's really, in a sense, a form of like it's the authoritarianism, right? And our parents go from being gods to being what we feel are authoritarian and authoritarians with us. So then we have, in some cases, maybe not all, you may end up occurring in your life many cases of, issues with authority. And so when you have issues with authority in your home and you haven't learned how to properly address or express or communicate, or even the biggest one I think I've learned, especially recently, is what we don't know can hurt us. And a lot of what we don't know, or we're not taught, we were not educated in the school systems about how to live in the world. We were just told about history and stuff, like to mold us and shape us based on stuff that didn't apply to us. But it gave us their version of what we should consider as his story. But it's not the real story. And it was based on the victors. History is written by those who won. We don't get the full story. So we're in this position of life where we're not given full informed consent. We're not given the whole story. If you're only getting half the story, you're getting a half truth, which means you're getting a lie. You're not getting the reality of the life that you are living. And how many people are looking around going, well, shit, I feel like I've been lied to all my life. And that is usually the first thing that upsets you when you go on that awakening path where you're going, whoa, I didn't know that. And now it's like you might have fought it. You might have even been in denial. That's the first stage of waking up, is the denial of the fact that you feel that you were taken advantage of, that you were lied to, that you were manipulated. You have to get angry because anger shows you care. And that's how you move up the scales of consciousness, in the awareness that you care, that you're angry, and then you have to grieve. Because under all of that is always going to be the grief. The fact that, wow, the life I lived, the life I know is not what I thought it was. It doesn't make it bad. It doesn't even make your life a lie. But it was predicated on a lie. It was predicated on half-truths. It's not the true story. It's not the whole story. So we're influenced because psychologically, this is a psychological warfare. Hello. When they said that World War III would not be televised, it's because it's internalized. It's the mind virus, the Wedico, the govern over the minds, government, rule over the mind. But the truth is we are the people that are supposed to be the government. We, the people, are the government. Meaning we're here to rule over our own minds. We're in a state of, I'm going to call it collateral damage. And it's been orchestrated over centuries to keep us suppressed and submissive to a system that claims to be there for us, but it's not. It's been infiltrated. It's been infiltrated for a very long time. We don't even know how long. But everything was a slow drip. And you were made to think that a lot of it was your choice. And it was, but if you were given full informed consent, would you have made the choice, is what it comes down to. Or the fact that when you think you want to say something, you're afraid to offend somebody. I'm sorry, but we're not here. We're not here to fix people. We're not here to, because really, fixing somebody or thinking you know better for someone, that's ego. That's all identity ego. That's all I know better for you. And nobody wants that done to them. So why would you do it to another if you don't want it done to you? There is so much going on, and this is also part of the design. Because ultimately, we came from a time where we used to be, we're supposed to be stewards of the land. You know, if you think about the story of we are created in God's image. If we are truly created in God's image, why do we doubt? Why do we even turn to external, why do we outsource? We turn to external authorities, professionals. Well, they know better than me. Do they? You want to believe they do because they studied and they have a doctorate or they have a degree or certificate, a piece of paper that says they do. But the reality is that doesn't make them better than you. And we've fallen too deep down that path of outsourcing to people because we were told they were the professional or they were the authority or that they were the go-to. When you are ready, when you get really angry on your awakening path, the reality is you have to take personal accountability and responsibility for every choice you've ever made. And that's humble pie. But so many people are in denial of what's been done to them because they've allowed it. They don't even realize they can change that in a moment. The moment you take personal accountability and responsibility for every choice you made, yeah, we've all made some shitty choices. We've all done some crazy stuff. That's what makes you human. That's why we're here. You're not here to be the judge and jury of anyone, let alone yourself. But because man spiraled out of control, you know, when you get a little bit of power, you get drunk off that power, and then you abuse that power. That's how, once you got bit by the vampire, you end up down that road. Just wait, you know, one day you may be faced with that choice to go down that path. Here's the promise, but here is the contract and what you have to give up for it. You may not think it's anything, but it's your soul. So I don't even know where to start, because repetition is the key to mastery and memorization, conscious or unconscious. The more you hear something, the more you repeat something, you begin to regurgitate it. So just think of TV and the televisions. You know, this is where it all began. They started testing us with psychological warfare to hijack our mental focus and power by using the media to channel televisions, to broadcast. It's all spell casting. And if you didn't believe it, just pay attention to the languaging. The words tell you everything because there's duplicity and meaning. Coming from the military environment, having been in the Air Force for over 10 years, plus government contracting and all the things, we call the battlefield theater. And the wars are campaigns. No different than marketing. Hook, line, and sinker. You know, they throw a hook, they hope you take their line, and then they're the ones that sink you. And again, that's also part of the water. That's part of the admiralty, the maritime admiralty system that we're stuck in, right? We are still under martial law. We are under these crazy notions that we think we have a government. It's supposed to be a republic, but technically they keep parroting this democracy thing to influence you to think we have a democracy, and that's actually the bullshit. If you pay attention enough, you can connect the dots. But if you're checked out, because here's the thing, you got everybody addicted to these devices, and the more you're on these devices, they're feeding on your vices. Because people have a shorter attention span now than they ever did in the past. In the past, at least, you could sit down and read a book and there wasn't all this noise. Now you've got the pressure of all these different social media apps, and you're, oh, well, I need to post this and that one, and oh, did they see this? And like everybody's checking up on each other, and they're not even checked into their own lives. They're checked out, and they've outsourced to these apps, to the devices. And then they don't realize the first thing they do is they reach for their devices so they can check, they can see, maybe get a hit of dopamine. Can't watch a video for more than a few minutes because, you know, the short attention span, it's like, oh, I got to move on. Or if it's too much content to read, the person moves on. This is what marketing would tell you and teach you about people's attention spans are so short now. If you don't hook them in the first 10 to 15 seconds, they're already moving on to the next thing. So now place that same person in front of a television, because again, repetition is the key to mastery, but you're already checking out within the first couple minutes. When you think you're listening, you're really not listening. You are hearing things that you don't realize you hear. Your subconscious, unconscious hears it, records it, and regurgitates it. Great example, you're watching a movie, you're watching TV, the advertisements come up. And then it's an advertisement for Dunkin' Donuts or Applebee's or Starbucks, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're going, oh, gee, you know, like 15 minutes later, you're going, gosh, I'm in the mood for like some Applebee's. I don't know why. Because you didn't even pay attention to the fact that you just got a flash power suggestion. You are that easily and subtly influenced. Then we're not even talking about the frequency and the vibration and the flickering of the lights and the subliminal messaging through these technology, the devices. You don't realize how the LEDs affect you, how the blue light affects you, how this is so bad for our biological systems. But yet you're influenced by it. I can say this because I notice it for myself and I recognize it around me. If you are not tuned in and tapped into your own body's wisdom, if you don't have an opinion, it will be given to you. How about when they started having pharmaceutical ads on the TVs? That was the biggest travesty. And to me, that's a crime against humanity, because ultimately, when they started putting those ads on TV, what were they doing? You're hearing that commercial over and over again. If you have these symptoms, blah, 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 you should talk to your doctor about blah, 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 blah. And then at the very end, it's side effects may include blah, 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 blah. We can't keep up with that, right? Power of suggestion. Oh, and especially for somebody who's a hypochondriac, oh my gosh, they will take that and run. And a lot of that is in the form of control, that a hypochondriac wants they're hypersensitive, they're hyper aware, but they're also hyper influential. They're easier to manipulate and influence into believing anything and everything, because they're outsourcing. They're not going within, they're not trusting their bodies. They're trusting everything external to them. So just at the drop of a pin, they turn into, oh, I need somebody to fix this. I have a problem. But just think about the medical model. This is the business model that the whole thing is predicated on. And it doesn't just stop there, obviously. I mean, when the Hydra got in there and infiltrated, it went deep. The idea that you didn't have any problems, you didn't have any issues, you didn't have any symptoms until you were around somebody or you heard it on the TV, right? When I was a child, I remember getting upset because I wasn't getting the attention that I needed and I didn't know how to articulate it. And when you're young, that's what you do. You have a tendency to try to find what ways will work with your parents to get their attention. So I would be, crying and screaming and having a tantrum or whatever I was doing. And I'll never forget, because I recognized it at the time and I caught on. This is how clever children are if you pay attention. They learn to manipulate through the ways of getting their needs met. I remember this because my mom looked at me and she goes, if you keep that up, and this is a common thing that they used to say back then, if you keep that up, the crying, the sobbing, the screaming, exhausting yourself, you will make yourself sick. Bingo! You make yourself sick. Everything, when you take personal accountability and responsibility, comes down to the choices you made that led to the situation, led to the dis-ease that caused you to seek external remedies, right? Cures, because doctors, they practice medicine, and the only cure they provide is one that masks the symptoms. And a cure when you look up the etymology of cure, means to suspend. It doesn't mean to fix. It doesn't mean to heal. A cure is like, kind of like a preservation, like preservative. Think about that. You cure something, you hold it in that suspended space so that you can maintain that space. So drugs are never meant to heal or fix you. They're meant to cure you, kind of like pickling you in a jar. Just like alcohol, pickling yourself, right? And even alcohol is a great example of where originally the alcohol was used to extract the essence from plants. Somebody got a little too, drunk off of it and decided, ooh, we need to try that more. Like, this is what we say in excess. When you go to the extremes, this is swinging on the pendulum of life. Can you recognize if you are present or you're trying to escape, swing on out into another realm? There's a lot of that going on. And I'm not knocking anybody. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stress. And it takes a lot of freaking courage to show up to the life that we're living in the times that we're in. So you should at least pat yourself on the back that you woke up this morning and you got out of bed. I don't care what time it is either. Because sometimes you just need to listen to your body and slow down. Because the influences around us have put us all in this fight or flight, freeze or fawn stress response, chronic stress. This is the real cause of dis-ease. This is what really breaks down the system more than anything, is you dissing your ease, is you not listening to your body. Your body is an oracle. Your body is a tattletale on the mind, and it is always telling you, if you're willing to listen to the language that it speaks, meant only for you. This is the thing. You go to a doctor and you're telling them all these things and they're looking at you like, oh, okay, I'm just writing it down and calculating it based on my personal experience and what I've been told and comparing it to all the notes that I took in school and all the things. But you are the professional of your life, your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul. But if you're checked out, somebody else will check in. Somebody else will infiltrate you and fill you in with what it is they want you to think, what they want you to believe. What do you think the TV is doing? It is a medium. You talk about psychics and spirits and witchcraft and stuff. We're surrounded by it. It exists, but it's up to you to also discern and recognize and learn how to break your own spell. How to break it is to stop regurgitating what you're being told and figure it out for yourself. And that's for self. Because if you don't start with self, they will take you out of yourself. They will check you out because they want you in the meta. They want you to be this zombified, submissive, follow the rules, we do as we say, not as we do. We've all had this influence around us and affecting us for so long that when you start to look back, you go, wow. It's like when I got my breast implants taken out. And I admit that the reason I got implants was I didn't feel complete. I didn't feel like I had the hourglass shape that media, the advertising was showing. I didn't feel I could fit into the clothes that fashion was selling instead of fitting the clothes to me, like my mom told me. That the reality was I was influenced by the media, by what I saw all around me. And it will eat away at your own personal self-worth and whether you love yourself, if you let it. Yeah. And so just looking at my experience with the breast implants, I figured, if they're available, they must be safe. Just like people go shopping in the stores or go to a restaurant and assume, they never ask questions. They don't read labels. Well, if it's in the stores, it must be safe or they wouldn't be selling it, right? That right there is cognitive dissonance. You have to be the advocate of your own health, your wealth, and your lifestyle. If you don't do it, somebody else will do it for you. And outsourcing in my book, because I've been a contractor, I've done all that stuff. I'm not giving someone else my liability. I am going to be personally responsible. It's the same thing with the banking system. If you've been following me, that's where I've been diving deep, is learning about the situation with the banking and how there is a trust that the moment we sign our name and it's associated with our social security number, they're going in there and they get a full line of credit. You're essentially signing your name and giving them access to your SESQV trust. They're supposed to be the security transfer agent. Any application be turned into a security and traded on the secondary market in your name. All of this done in your name because we didn't read the contract that says we handed over security interest to them. And they could do whatever they want with the money. We think we get a bill in the mail. Bills can't be made by anybody but the president. We're actually getting a statement, a presentment, right? Hello, 144. We have a few beautiful souls in here. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to all of you for showing up. I mean, in life, not just here. Because this life, it will give you challenges. And it will get stressful if you take them so personal and make them so personal or about you, and you take it on as if it's your identity and that, you know, your cause, your reason, your passion is because of this trauma that you haven't healed from. That in itself is also a hijacking. So let me just start. Like, I wrote all this down the other day, so I was trying to read over it to see where do I start with this, because this is really where we're at. The medical industry business model is the hijacking of your mind by power of suggestion. None of this disease stuff exists. It's all symptoms because people have given up. Oh, you know, this is how I feel and this is how I feel. And then we compare those symptoms and then you put a label on it as if that's something. Hello, we're humans and we're living in a life, and when you're stressed, you have all the same symptoms too. It doesn't mean you have a disease. It means you're learning about your human. Your human handles things a certain way, and if you're really tapped into your body, you go, well, oh, ooh. When I heard that word, it just made me tense, made me feel a certain way. It's not because, you know, I'm tight and I need a massage, but I might, that too. We need to lighten up and stop outsourcing to these models, these situations, because ultimately this is where, if you've listened to my previous videos, and I talked about back when the black magic sorcerers were hunting witches, see, they accused others, kind of like what we're seeing in the world. They accused others of being what they were. They projected. They had that loaded gun, literally. They were telling you, we're hunting witches and you need to prove to us. And this is part of this really screwed up thing, is we had good-hearted people who trusted and didn't have anything to lose, or so they thought, is that you're a witch or until you prove us otherwise. Well, wait a minute here, because this also goes back to what we're living in these times now, where it used to be you're innocent until proven guilty. These days, they've flipped the switch. Once again, they've inverted and perverted, upside down, inside out world, to where they're claiming that you're guilty and there is no proof. And they're expecting you to disprove them, which means they put all the burden of proof upon us. That's the wrong system. That is not the way this world works. And all of the crimes out there in the world are all civil matters. And guess what? It's all bankers' court. It all goes back to banks. We're under banking constitution. We're not under a real constitution. We're under martial law too. But the banks are the ones running the show. So when you go to court, that's tax court. When you get pulled over by the police, that police officer has to have a license. It's a banking license, because he's there to extort money from you. Because you have a driver's license that makes you an employee to the DMV. They didn't tell you that. They're supposed to pay for your insurance and your car maintenance and all those things. They don't do that either. But they've also got a line of credit against your trust account as well. So all the fees and things that you're paying, they're double dipping. Because our debts, because of the Emergency Banking Act and all the things that happened back in the early 1900s, end of the 1800s, early 1900s, they essentially took all of our property, and that means our social security number in our all caps name is property as well. It's a copyright. You need to reclaim that. They took all of that and said they would back all our debts so that there would be no debt. Full faith backed by the United States government. And interestingly enough, I mean, on Friday, I was I had deposited a cashier's check, and the bank, I deposited on Tuesday. It didn't show up till Thursday, and then they put an extended hold on it. I'm like, wait a minute, cashier's check is immediate, it's available funds. People forget banks have FDIC insured. That means there's no reason for them to withhold your money. When the moment you deposited that check became cash. They put it in their notes, on their ledger. It is a book entry, meaning they are showing it as cash in their books, because again, the cash goes back to the treasury and they collect the actual value. They're supposed to give you back value twice. But the bank, they profit 9 times off of the $1, because then they're loaning it out. They're doing whatever they want. So if you look up the banking laws too, as far as how long they can hold your check, well, it's a cashier's check. That should have been deposited next day, next business day at the latest. And you could say they're collecting interest, but they're going above and beyond. That's just the minimal. That is actually nothing. The interest is nothing compared to them double dipping and all the other things where they take the check, because now it's a security, and they can trade that on the secondary market as well. Anything that has your signature becomes a security, and they're trading it and making money off of it illegally. That's securities fraud. So this is what I did. I went and it was a credit union to credit union. So instead of FDIC insured, they are NCUA insured. I called them up, and I've been with them since I was a teenager. I called them up and said, first off, I want to know why you have a hold on my check, because they were trying to hold it for 2 weeks, a cashier's check. And you notice that when you go in the banks now, they're all talking about for your protection against security and fraud and drugs, like all this more fear mongering, more layers. They're protected because they got the insurance. Your money is covered because it's backed by not only the insurance, but the full faith and trust to be paid by the US government. People don't know how to advocate for themselves because they haven't read. They have not been reading. And that makes them well-read and ignorant to the people that can see that they basically treat us like we're irresponsible with money. Kind of like our government. I mean, the corporation that appears to be as such, right? So I explained to him, I said, I understand that my money, as soon as I deposited that check, even according to the Electronic Transfer Act, should have been deposited next business day. And he went back and he started to say, I'll go talk to my supervisor, blah, blah, blah. He goes back and he comes back and he explains to me, yeah, we see it on our ledger, because they were saying there was a third party involved because of the electronic transfer, because I took a picture, the apps. I said, first off, why is a third party involved in my cash, in my money exchange? Oh, they don't do anything. They're just responsible for checking to make sure that the cash is in the other account. That right there is illegal, because them withholding your money and then saying they're using a third party, and you're like, wait, that in itself is a security fraud. They're not supposed to share your information with the third party. It's in their contract. And that's how you go back at them, is you look up the terms and conditions of your contract, read over it, and see where you gave over all security interest to them. That if they need to sign on your behalf, you gave them permission, meaning they're acting as if they're you. And when they say may do something, change the wording. It says they may do something with or without your consent because you gave consent. It means they will. They're telling you what they're doing. They're just trying to, dumb down the languaging. They really do, to make you feel like that's just too much to read. So the long story short was that I pointed out, well, you clearly have it on your ledger, so you have deposited the funds, and because it is backed by the NCUA, there is no reason why you should be holding my money. I said, I want my money in my account. And then he proceeds to tell me that the supervisor told him he had to call the other credit union to make sure the money was available. And I'm just shaking my head like, now you're just doing a bunch of extra that was, if you were going to do it, you should have done that first, not rely on a third party to determine if they could release the funds. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're putting so much pressure on you that doesn't need to be there. That's unnecessary stress. And if you don't address your unnecessary stress, who wins in the end in that situation? Had I not known and just ignored it and said, okay, fine, whatever, it's got 2 weeks, I gotta wait. I'm like, bullshit. That's a lot of fucking money. That was a lot of money I put in that account. I was not happy. I'm like, that's my money. And it was cashier, meaning it's guaranteed. So you need to hold people accountable to do the right thing, because they're not necessarily going to do the right thing. Even though the terms and conditions say one thing, that doesn't mean they're not pulling some shit on the back end, because they've been doing it for a long time. This is literally a game of Monopoly. We are literally living in a game of Monopoly. And believe it or not, your wealth is directly attached to your self-worth. If you don't feel worthy, your wealth will decline. You have to step up and be the advocate for yourself. Take personal accountability and responsibility. The reason people aren't getting all the monies and the things that they think they want and deserve is because they're not stepping up in their power. They're not, I'm working on it too. I'm just going to tell you the stuff I'm learning. I'm cultivating the courage within myself to make the proper steps. I got a box of 1099s and 56 forms to be able to revoke. These are from the IRS, to revoke the power of attorney that I gave to these financial institutions, because they are not doing right by me. They have defrauded, securities fraud, not just me, because they're doing it in my name, because I don't know what they're doing in my name. See, think about that. Like, in the one hand, you walk into a bank and it says, for protective measures to prevent the hackers, for your protection and your security. And it even lists out things like drugs and what is it, harvesting and trafficking and all these things. I'm like, wow, you're really trying to put the fear out there, aren't you? But the reality is, they're the ones doing that too. And if it comes down to it, and you're ignorant and you don't take back your power and you don't revoke their hand over your fiduciary accounts, who's to say, just like Minority Report, they don't turn it around on humans. They don't turn it around on the common man. That we found an account with your name in the Cayman Islands that's been associated with drug trafficking and human trafficking. This is what I'm trying to explain. This is what you're a self-employed accountant, tax preparer for 30 years. See what I mean? And but you know what? You don't know what they haven't told you, right? So as being a tax accountant, you should be familiar with the 56 form for revoking the fiduciary responsibilities and taking it and putting it in your own trust. So you become the trustee of your accounts. There's so much more to this than me just saying that. But I'm trying to get you aware that if by not taking over personal accountability and responsibility of not just your finances, but your, not just of your life, that it can easily be turned around, just like you're seeing the inverted world around us. And they can make you be the criminal based on the money situation. So we see where they're laundering and sending off money to other countries, right? It's very common for them to turn around and go, it wasn't us, it's you. This is classic, right? The way they're behaving, it's actually, I'm just saying this is what I would expect of them, because I wouldn't expect them any less of them to behave in the right manner. That they are predictable. And just like Minority Report, they can easily manipulate, like they've been scrubbing the internet and all this other stuff that's been going on in the world. So if they're able to utilize and do things in your name because you gave them power of attorney, what else are they capable of? And how will they use that against you? Because this is literally, we know it's a psychological war. But if you don't get your psyche right, you don't get your 5 senses right and start learning to trust your intuition and read between the lines and get out of the, break the spell, they will take it against you physically in that way. They'll come after you, because that's what narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths do, is they turn it all around on you, when in reality, they know exactly what they're doing. And they do it with no remorse. So let me start out with saying, Friday I went to the beach. I was having a really nice, enjoying time out there, but unfortunately got a little chilly, so I had to leave. The sun, it's warm, you feel it on your skin. The next thing you know, it's like, where'd the sun go? It's right there. It was even a blue sky. It was such a beautiful blue sky. And I was like, well, so why don't I feel the sun on my skin? Something's not right with that. I'm a sun baby. I'm a Leo, so I know. I feel it. Because what you feel is what is revealed. And you got to listen to your body. And my body says, something's not right with our sun. Whether they're covering it up with all those chemical trails, I don't know. But I do suspect. That's just, you know. So I've been having conversations with James, Juan 44 over here. And we were talking all around the disease stuff. You know, like I said, I personally have this inner dialogue that I don't believe in disease. Because Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, which is a great book, they have done enough studies to recognize that children adopted into families whose their original biological parents didn't have any forms of cancer, actually had cancer because they were in families that had cancer. It is the power of suggestion. It is your environment creates that influence. It's what you're exposed to, right? And truly, it's all a vibration anyway. It's all a frequency and an energy. The real cancer is these parasites that created this business model. See, they created the business model just like back when the witch doctors claimed they were injecting, hey, if you just let us inject this cow pus into you, you'll be fine as long as, you know, we don't get a certain reaction. You know, we'll know by injecting it that you are, you aren't. So they injected it, and of course they probably said, oh no, you're not a witch. And the people were like, phew, okay. And then they went, yeah, if we could get them to let us inject something into them, imagine what else we can get away with. And you can make people more submissive by creating cures, creating pharmakia, you know, the biggest spell casting there is, the highest form of spell casting, pharmakia, pharmacies, drugs, influencing you through injecting you, but making you think it's your choice. Because by the power of suggestion, they have infiltrated, filled in your mind through your five senses, because you know that's how they know how you take in data. Psychology is not a new area of study. In fact, that's the thing that blows my mind the most, is you'll hear on the TV sometimes when they're like, we had no idea that children were going to have, you know, this kind of reaction and be so addicted to devices and technology or sugar. Let's just use sugar. It's like, yeah, you did. You knew exactly what you were doing. That was the point. What do you think they do in the whole realm of spending money on marketing? They have people who study the best ways to get people addicted so that their product sells and they have repeat customers. This is not new. Anybody who's worked in marketing and advertising and in big companies with big products, they do this. They've always done this. They've always told us they do this. And see, that's the irony, is they do. They always tell us. It's just whether or not you're in denial and not wanting to listen and hear it. I mean, most of the foods that we probably consume, I was sharing this with my dad the other day. I said, let's just get real. What nutritional value does processed food provide you? How does it contribute to the building blocks of your body? Yeah, the big cell on the cells. Gluten, it's glue, first off. I'm allergic. I think that was the best blessing, despite it could have been the glyphosate. It doesn't really matter. It's just that my body said, that shit doesn't work in here. All it does is bind me up, cause me constipation and inflammation. That is not hydration, which, see, that's the underlying cause of most disease, the stress, the inflammation, and the dehydration. So if you're consuming things like bread, pasta, grains, heavily processed and refined grains, you're not going to go out in the field and grab a stalk of wheat and go, this is so nutritious and yummy. In fact, who the heck came up with that? Bread and circus, people. Bread and circus. Bread, wine, and circus. I want you to look at the stories and the ways they've gotten people addicted and numbed out to life around them. You want to talk about the fall of Rome and all these things that happen. History repeats itself. It's not like we've learned and applied it and said, oh, we're not going to do that. No, we say that, but then we're doing it. So you go and you buy sandwiches with bread. Your body has confliction between, hey Carl, the bread, which is basically, you might as well be eating cardboard. Let's just get real. You might as well eat cardboard. And it's not to say you'd get any more or less nutrition from the cardboard, but you're using it as a filler. We use bread to dip it into sauces to soak it up to give it flavor. We have to add salt and sugar because it doesn't have a flavor otherwise. Like so much of the foods that we consume, we never stop to think about, how is this nutritionally adding value to my body? Because every 7 years, your body regenerates all your cells and all your organs and everything. But do you stop to think about how you nurture and nourish and feed yourself with the food, as well as what you're feeding your mind with the influences of the exposure to the things that you watch, you listen to, the five senses taking it all in? It's all connected. It is not separate. Because if you're in a mood because something on the TV influenced you to get triggered or whatever it is, and then you go reaching for a food, or even they influenced you because they said they had an advertisement that made you go for the food. Because how conscious are you of the way that the cascading of events occurs? The dominoes fall. They're all connected. You're sitting in front of the TV, so you're just you're numbed out. You're not really eating. If you were really eating, you would slow down and just eat it without any external noise and anything else to distract you. Like real true nourishment comes with appreciation, smelling it, tasting it, touching it, just all the flavors, all the things that make this life experience so beautiful. The whole reason we're here. So yeah, okay, you can eat the bread and all that stuff, but recognize it as that filler. The addiction to it too. The idea that, well, we eat this because that's what we've always eaten. Never questioning for it. Yeah, and cookies. C is for cookie is good enough for me. Cookie, cookie, cookie starts with C. But cookies follow you everywhere you go because your breadcrumbs leave a trail. Technology. AI is always listening. That's been a thing for a long time. Is that a surprise? It's all connected. So what I was writing down, and I started reading what I had written, but it's a power of suggestion by these black magic sorcerers and witch doctors. You go back to the whole vaccine thing, right? The cow pus. We'll inject that in you, and then, let's see if they let us get away with this. Boy, what else can we get away with? That's an abuse of power. They saw that they were able to exert a sense of power and authority over these people out of the fear of them. They made up a story. They made up a story, but they were telling the truth. They got a half truth and not a fully informed consent or whole story. Because the true witch doctors were these individuals that claimed they were hunting witches. And then they got people to think that they were good people. And then they created their version of a cure, preserve and prolong, whereas nature nurtures with tune in and tune up remedies. All those bells and all the cathedrals that used to have these sound healings. Those were sound healing places. We're so zapped right now. It's amazing that some of us can even see the glimmer and connect the dots the way we do, right? But there's a freedom and expansiveness when nature remedies us versus the science pharmakeia way, which literally is spell casting and deceit. It's deceptive because they know they're doing it. It's influential because you don't know, you assume, making ass out of you and me as it goes. They don't want you to flourish, but they want to contain and suspend you in a state of submission to fall under their spell. That's what the spell casting is all about. We first trick you with the mind, follow the pendulum, and then we will further that and suspend that spell by injecting you or giving you a pill. See how that works? It's that simple. That's pretty clever. It's this is the way I thought Thought this was like, oh shit. It's kind of the way a cat plays with the mouse. Kind of fucks with it, plays with it, kind of kills it a little, but then it plays with it to keep it alive because it wants it alive so it can play with it more. That's what they're doing to us. Treating us like a mouse. Killing us slowly with all their poison. Because they still need us for whatever reasons, right? They only want you enough to do the work they don't want to do. They literally want you to hand over their soul, your soul. They don't have a soul. So I can see how this hydra literally infiltrated, got into the tentacles, having the cures to the fake diseases they made up. It's all stories. They're the masters of disguise and influence. You won't recognize them because you only see the mask. You assume what you're seeing, but you're not seeing beyond that veil. And mind control, influencing people with the power of suggestion. Once again, repetition is the key to mastery and memorization. Killing myself? Yep. Conscious and unconscious, it doesn't even matter. Mastery in remembering because you've seen or heard it so often you adopt it as your own and never question how you even came upon it. You took it on as your story, but you didn't realize you heard it somewhere. Like, how many times you tell a story? I do it all the time. I heard this the other day. I heard this somewhere. I was having a conversation with a friend and she told me something she heard. All stories. We're all creating stories and we're prolonging. And again, what we tell as a story becomes our spell. We cast our own spells. So you can be a good witch like Linda, or you can be a bad witch like these black magic sorceries, right? Gossip is hearsay or the heresy. Yes. Even gossip has its good and its bad, right? Gossip to keep people well informed so they're aware. And then gossip that's maniacal and nasty toward people where they're comparing and judging. Not good. So if you, and this is where I said, using your 5 senses is how they infiltrate you. Through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, your touch, your spidey sense. And even the nose that knows, it feels a sense. It senses something. It smells something fishy, even if it's not a smell, it smells, right? But by using these 5 senses to infiltrate you, they know that's how you take in information, so they'll fill you in. They fill you in through those senses. They hijack you because you allow them to. It's where attention goes, energy flows, and you are feeding the cancer themselves. They bloom off this stuff. Don't have an opinion? They'll give you one. Look at all the things people watch and listen to, and then watch how they utilize those things to relate to one another. I mean, I'm going to just say, when you watch the news and you take a side, you have been hijacked. You have been influenced into believing something you were told to think and believe. You don't even have, 9 times out of 10, you have no proof, no personal, actual stake in that, but you're taking it on as if you know it. And I hear it all the time, people having conversations about politics, and I'm just like, oh, not that one again, because it's like sports teams, like I said before, you're picking a side, and they're 2 wings of the same bird. Yeah, we're already filled in, but that's not enough. None of that is who we are. None of what we see is who we are. None of what we think is even who we are. We're so much beyond that. We cannot know in a verbal way. Like it's a sensory, extra sensory. This is what intuition is about. Into me I see because I am tapped into my 5 senses. My body is my oracle. If I need guidance, I will ask for the language that it speaks only to me and yours to yours, right? So if you're not fully engaged and participating consciously, they will have their way with you. This is the crazy part, right? So they started testing us with this psychological warfare to hijack, I love this, hijack our mental focus and power by using the media to channel, to tell lies and visions, to broadcast the world they wanted us to believe we live in. So we adopted that. Seeing how easy it is to entertain people, how could you not? That was brilliant. That was brilliant. People are checking out from their lives to tune into the fake lives and the fake lies. All this stuff that is publicized. Yeah. I mean, really make yourself take a step back and recognize how much you've given your power over to the stories you've been hearing and told. Even history. You know, the book hunters that chased down books and they removed the print out of the pages and then wrote stories. They actually sold stories in books to people who wanted to be important figures in history when they weren't. So we've read about people that we have no clue about, and they never really were anybody significant because they wanted to be important in history. But again, like I said, if you listen to my videos, I believe books were the first technology to get us to stop communicating telepathically and to share the stories we used to share and pass on the lineage and the wisdom, right? So by doing this, it got even easier. The more people struggled to work and live because people are so busy they can't be bothered to know what's going on in their own local environment, to even get involved in their communities. Neighbors don't even welcome each other into the community or the families and welcome new people that move into the area like they used to. Nor do they make an effort to even get to know one another. I mean, I walked my dog. I would say hi to anybody. Like, that's one of the things I miss about Buddy the most. But by keeping people under so much stress, so much distress and distrust, like that's where people seek to check out. When you're stressed out, what do you want to do? Let's go get a drink, which is a depressant. Let's go to a movie. Okay, there's a story. If that's going to influence you. Let's go eat. You know, all these things that we use to check out. Well, we really need to check back in. This allows us to disconnect, veg out, escape, whatever you want to call it. Flood the streets with illegal drugs as a dangerous option, both because the same people who made them illegal brought them into our streets, and they know how highly addictive that they would become. So that gave them a dual purpose, to fight their war on drugs. But it was always to keep us down or fighting against each other and amongst ourselves. Exhausting us by removing our God-given rights and offering their controllable, oh, but we let you choose options. Clever, clever. The same people that claim to be fighting a war on drugs are the ones who are actually making sure that you have access to them, illegal or not, with a prescription or without. Get it? It really is that diabolical. This is collateral damage, and this is what we're experiencing, is the fallout from this manipulation, this infiltration of we have allowed things to get to this point. Hello, Dad, I'm doing a video. By legalizing pharmaceutical drugs to keep people addicted to the system, that's more enslavement. That means you need to be dependent upon that. Again, like I said before, that suspends the spell cast. The fact that they were already getting you brainwashed to believe that you needed something made you dependent upon it too. So they always had their plan. This whole thing, everything is by design. Have a system devised to hook people, but herd them into needing the system so bad that they suggest it, and it appears as if they came up with it. So you think it was your idea. That's how that works. I thought I'd be done by now, but I'm not, obviously. All right, so continuing on. See, they took symptoms, the complaints that people had, and they put a label and they offered a cure, but they always had the cure because they knew they wanted to provide you something that they could slowly poison you with to give you the impression that they were trying to help you, but they were actually making you worse. Just in case you're wondering, you're on the film. So, there were no diseases. People stopped living and started being more concerned with what they were being told than actually recognizing what they were feeling, right? Rather than having personal life experiences, we focus more on everyone else's experiences and comparing ourselves to those experiences. whoa, like we're not living our own lives. We're living vicariously through the lives of others. Oh, they're sick. I hope I don't get sick. If I'm around them, I'm going to get sick, as if that person makes you sick. They don't make you sick. It's just the fact that you are so highly suggestible. That's how much power you have in manifesting. That by the power of suggestion, you yourself will create what you are being suggested to create. Somebody is sick around you. How about considering that they're sick? Imagine them not being sick and stop dropping down to that vibrational frequency, because that's where you lose, is you try to match people where they're at as opposed to elevating, uplifting, and bringing them up. The way that the system is predicated is to keep you down. So therefore, even the people in, I'm saying all humans, the system is so rigged. They've got you trying to keep each other down, one another. That's part of their Ponzi scheme. That because when toxicity, it starts at the top and it trickles down. So if they're trying to keep us down and you're trying to get out of the pot, we're a bunch of crabs, and somebody sees somebody doing better than another, they don't actually applaud and celebrate the person. They want to bring them down, like, oh, there's something wrong with that person. They don't deserve that. Like, as if that validates their own stance of why they're not where that person is. Instead of happiness, instead of collaboration and cooperation, there's more combativeness and comparison and competition of who can do better and who can have more against each other. And that's messed up our whole world. This is exactly where we need to do better. And when you know better, you can do better. The idea that you think you know it all, you haven't even seen the half of it. Because again, I already told you, they only give us half the information. And if you don't have eyes to see, ears to hear, a nose that knows, and spidey senses that are tapped in and tuned into it, you're going to be prime for the picking. Rather than, okay, so if, again, it's a power suggestion. If somebody's sick, they're sick, not you. And nobody gives it to you. You create it. It's an internal job. Nobody passes it on. But that's their business model. The fear of what if? Now we have to prevent things, right? So then they got into the preventative care, which is not really preventative care. It's just the power of suggestion to let you know that you're fighting against the boogeyman that doesn't exist, because you don't necessarily know if you would ever get these so-called diseases. They're telling you it's preventative because you could get those diseases. It's a fucking story. Take that story and chuck it in the fuck it bucket. It's time to stop falling for the lies and the spell casting, because that's what that is. They have created all of these diseases so that you will come running to them. Oh, please help me. Please fix me. What's wrong with me? I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be because you told me to. You got to take personal accountability and responsibility for yourself. Sometimes it's not easy and it sucks because nobody really wants to do it. Who's going to take care of me? Me. It sucks. And I tell you, it feels lonely sometimes. Especially around a bunch of people who may not be doing it for themselves and they expect you to be the one to do it for them. But that is where we're at in humanity, is waking up to the reality of where you have outsourced your health, your wealth, your personal lifestyle, and everything. And he got a watermelon. Okay. Yes. And the kindness trick with the blood donor racket. Oh, God. Yeah, more stuff there. So, actually believing that we make others sick is just ludicrous. That is the definition of crazy and insanity. It's where we're focusing our attention that magnifies it and creates it. That is the power of manifestation. The law of attraction is where attention goes, energy flows. That is how you create matter into form. And you also hold things in a presence by expecting and anticipating things because they've always been that way. The real cancer goes back to the way they've infested us and bloom off of our dis-ease, not disease, but our inability to feel ease, our inability to feel like, homeostasis, I'm not stressed out, I don't have, a problem. They literally are feeding off of us like a parasite. And we've allowed it. I mean, we've handed over. We put it on a silver platter in most cases, and we don't even realize we did that. But we're more connected than we realize. And that's where, if I were to get straight up, this is where we need to come back to. Yeah. It is the most rewarding because you give yourself your own dopamine hit. You create your own happy hormone cocktail. You don't have to get a dopamine hit because you got a like on Facebook or you shared something or that you saw so-and-so's doing this and that one's doing that. The reality is that is the fake world. All of that that's secure. That's secure to suspend you in the spell cast, is to continually engage in these devices and feeling the need to keep informed, right? You think you're being informed. You have a fear of missing out. It's FOMO. You think that if you don't participate in the social media, that you're not connected to. When you don't connect on social media, you assume that you're not participating in humanity, in, the caste system. Because it used to be people were more afraid of being cast out of society. But now society has moved over to a platform where they're more disconnected than ever before. Because you don't actually have to be accountable. You can be a snitch. You can be a jerk. You can be a bully. You can be sweet. You can give a facade because it's all masks. These devices are our vices because it's not even who we are. I mean, you see me and I can share all this beautiful stuff, but I can also say I get agitated because the noise in the background and this is happening. It's how you handle the things that are happening in your life that matter the most. It's whether or not you're actually engaged and present for it and recognize it for what it is. And a little joke aside, but this is a game. It's just how seriously we turned it into, oh my gosh, the sky is falling henny penny. Well, they're fucking with that too. Isn't it ironic how they create rules for things that are so uncommon? For the few, the many will suffer. Why did we give them the power to even create rules to govern over us? We forgot. We, the people, are the government. Again, I'm always going to go back to that. At what point are we going to wake up and say, okay, I've had enough of this bullshit? It's called treason. And you are going to not only be tried for treason, but you can work in one of those work camps. Let you work for a little bit, or maybe just kick them out of our country, like we've done over centuries, because that's where we're at again. We're in the same state we were in many eons ago, where these certain people show up, take on the identities of people that they are not, but use them as a buffer. Like if you identify with a group of people and then you marginalize them and say you can't say certain things about them, then that will protect us. We put them around us and then we don't have to be accountable. We can act like we're entitled because we're marginalized. That's narcissism. They're trying to normalize that shit. That it's okay for you to not speak up about what you feel and how you feel marginalized, because there's a small group, for the few, the many will suffer, that you have to be, walking on eggshells. Excuse me, fuck that shit. If you can't have a conversation, then you know who's ruling. You know who's running the show. Just saying the obvious out loud. So this is one of their psychological tricks. They've been doing this through the centuries to hijack our mental power, to manifest more of that, to break the rules. So they put rules in place specifically because they anticipate we will break them, because they know that's how psychology works. I'm going to ask you for one moment to not turn that on until I am done with this video, because that noise will drive me up the fucking wall. Thank you. The juicer makes a squeaking noise that will also get you off my screen. So I want to say thank you for staying this long. I'm almost done. You may never consider it until they start placing focused attention upon it to draw upon your energy to harvest and steer the manifestation to the reality they want. And that, again, that's why I say the power of suggestion through watching TV. They're already getting you to buy into their products by watching their shows on their programs, their television. They're programming you. And then they put an advertisement in there to get you to buy their products too. They're doing it all. This is, like I said, this is cleverly, perfectly orchestrated and well underway. And it's so deep, the Hydra is in every little crevice and cubicle and corner, everywhere, lurking and feeding off of us. So every complaint, I want you to consider this. Every complaint we have Be humble to recognize there's a desire and a need underneath that. What does it mean? It means I'm upset because a need wasn't met, hasn't been fulfilled, and I feel neglected. That's what complaints really are, is my needs weren't met, period. So when you get upset, just be gentle with yourself. Recognize, slow down. If it's because somebody else didn't do something, you got to sit with it. You got to go, okay, was this me placing expectations on somebody? Have they done this before? Withheld, not followed through, whatever the things are. Because we also notice there are patterns to people's behaviors. And we want to believe one thing, and sometimes they just keep on doing another. But that's our crazy making, not theirs. Because people show us who they are through their actions and their behaviors, not through their words. They will show their synchronicity or their inauthenticity by whether they match with their words or not. And it's vulnerable to recognize that a complaint is an unexpressed and unmet need. It could even be a trauma response, because you have this happening over and over again. It could be a cycle and a pattern that you need to also address and go deeper for. Because if you were happy and you were satiated and all the things were working out the way you wanted, you wouldn't have a complaint. And so you need to like go, oh, okay, that's why I'm upset, because this wasn't met. This need wasn't fulfilled. Okay. I'm not feeling seen, heard. Maybe I'm feeling rejected or neglected.
What's the matter?
Yeah. So I was also sitting in my practice this morning, because this is a combination of the past few days that I've just been writing some things down. I was having a reflection again back on this Ponzi scheme. The toxic world of control systems where there's a pyramid. The Ponzi scheme always goes with the pyramid, right? And it's a scheme of hierarchy. This idea that there's somebody higher than us. There is none higher than us in this realm. So why have we handed it over? That's the problem. And how the work environment reflected the level of toxicity that exists at the top for me was being in the military. Seeing that if my supervisor was on an edge and his, manager on top of him, it was because the people up above them were shit and were controlling and micromanaging, and that's why it kept coming back down and trickling down, because that's how that works. It's called the trickle-down effect. It's not a result of a toxic work environment, that it has to come from the top. It doesn't start from the bottom. People are stressed because of the situation that the work conditions they're under. And people forget you're working for someone does not make you a slave to them. But when people start abusing their power like that and excessive control in a workplace, now you're talking about abuse of authority. And now you are expressing and expecting people to work like slaves for you, as opposed to recognizing they're doing you a service. They're exchanging their time and their energy for your business to thrive. And when a business owner forgets that, that's when they need to be fired, or leadership, or you need to leave. And so many people are in that, oh, but I'm afraid to say anything because I'll get in trouble, or there'll be retaliation, and all. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I grew up with. That if you said something, you'd get in trouble and you'd be punished. It's not to say it doesn't still happen. It does, obviously. But the level of responsibility placed upon the shoulders of people who are just literally showing up for a job because they need money, and they're offering themselves as an exchange to work for the money that is an equal exchange. That's not income. That is a technique. Okay. Wow. I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me? Let me know in the comments if you can still hear me. It just completely, I can't tell. Help. Okay, so the numbers are going up now. That was bizarre. It literally just froze in my hand, and I was like, okay. So let me know if you're still here in the comments. But essentially what I wrote down too, the work environment, perfect. Okay, good. The work environment reflects the level of toxicity or collaboration and cooperation that exists at the top. And I still have videos to upload from my trip, but dictators wagging their dicks around marking their territory and exercising their grip of control. When people fear their leaders, the leaders must go. And this is what we've been experiencing, is literally a bunch of dictators wagging dicks around, trying to mark their territory, fighting for control. That's not human. That's crimes against humanity. That is not acceptable. But yet people have been accepting that, and then being in the Stockholm syndrome, the idea that you need to defend your abusers and your accusers. What? It's insanity. Anyway, so it's clear they forgot that the people work for them and aren't enslaved to them. Toxic people don't think about others. They only think of themselves. Thinking of how bad it was in some of my work environments where I was serving the people I worked for, like clients and things like that, but the leadership was so disconnected and had no clue about the customer. Instead, they were relying on comments or praise from the client. Instead of relying on the comments and the praise of my clients, they were looking at people who didn't have any interest or involvement. It's just crazy stuff. But again, it's like misery loves company. If you're in a toxic environment and you continue to stay in that environment, it will create the disease in you. I'm a prime example because that's what happened to me. Not once, twice, maybe 3 times. I'm not even sure. I mean, even my ex-social media partner. I mean, I landed in the hospital with my appendix. And if you look up the meanings of the different body parts, my body was telling me I was deeply disgusted. I could say with him, but it came back to me, because everything's about me. Everything's about you for you. The body is the oracle. It's always telling on the mind. It is telling you through the language it demonstrates. It is showing you when there's an alignment or a misalignment. You know, when your spine is all achy and breaky and it's like, oh, is it stiff? That's probably because you have a stiff, unwaverable, dogmatic belief system. If you have a lot of spine issues, that's because you just can't get with the program. You're inflexible mentally and emotionally. And then when you have tightness in joints, that's mobility. Why are you not moving forward in life? What is holding you back? Why are you stuck? Why are you stagnant? There's so many different things you can look at if you're willing to see it. Because again, you're going to see stuff and maybe you remember it, maybe you don't. The main reason that you remember things is because you're present to it. But when you don't remember them, but it still shows up, it's because you're unconscious to them. And then that's the difference between whether you are the master of your domain or you are being mastered. And that's by the ego first. And then you outsource it to these external systems that influence you through the power of suggestion. And that wraps up longer than what I anticipated, but that's okay. I get it. I bet you get it in your own way. That when things don't seem quite right because you're feeling it isn't quite right, trust that. Journal on it. Ask yourself, why doesn't this feel right? Because it could be the indicator of a major change in your life coming, like I've talked about before. You could be on the precipice of massive change in your life. Something that just blows you out of the water, and it could be the best thing ever. Your mind, though, it's going to make you think it's something dramatic and traumatic because it doesn't know what it is. It doesn't make it bad. It just means there's something rumbling, something coming up that you're unaware of. And the mind is aware of it because it feels threatened because it doesn't have an answer. Not knowing doesn't make it bad. That's just how the mind interprets it. If you do know, that doesn't make it easier either, though. I'd say that if we came to this planet, we were born, and we knew everything, that would take the fun out of this life. It would take the fun out of new experiences. The assumption that you know, when the surprise is all the reason we're here. Like, we're here to have fun. I have my moments I get too serious. I get hijacked and distracted and all the noise of the externals. Oh, hello, beautiful Pamela. Thank you for joining. We have Carl, we have Juan44, we have William, we have that one. We have beautiful souls joining us, as you are yourself. And I do. The mystery. Miss story. Her story is the mystery. Yeah. There's so much beauty to behold. Let me remind you. Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. And Pamela, you always make me feel good. You always say good stuff. Remember, the mystery is what makes this world worth living, because we are magic and we are creating our own realities. We have the power. And that's the beauty, is we are here to write our own stories, to create our own worlds. Like when you get hijacked on what's going on out there in the world, I mean, I know what's going on. I see little glimmers here and a glimmer there, and I'm like, ugh. But when it comes down to it, is it really affecting your immediate environment? That's what matters most when you really reflect on it. I thrive when I'm traveling. I want to be out there. I want to be meeting people. I want to have experiences. I don't want to be stuck on a device all the time. I don't want to be shuffling through papers all the time. Like, at the same time, I'm writing and I'm doing, and it's just, wow. It's kind of a lot. It gets overwhelming. But if you don't take, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's kind of the joke. But if you don't do a little to move in the direction of the things you desire, it's going to feel like a lot when you're trying to catch up because you weren't doing a little every day. And so I remind myself, it's time to slow down, to soften. My personal practice is I'm softening into my heart. I'm slowing down. Listen to the whispers of your soul. It resides also with your heart. Your heart and your soul. Let the wisdom guide you. Be and allow yourself to be in alignment with the flow of your soul. Like, let life surprise you. Stop trying to know it all. Remind your head, hey, I don't know. Let's make it fun again. Hey, let's go have a journey. Let's have something new. You never know what's going to happen. But if you go with it, with this curiosity like the child, have a mind of curiosity like the child. That's the beginner's mind is what we call it in yoga and meditation. To maintain the beginner's mind means to always have the curiosity of a child, which means you don't assume you know how things will be. Even with traffic, that's my best example because that's the one that triggers people the most. That's the one that really will show, hey, you got the calm? Are you calm? Oh, just get behind the wheel. You'll find yourself. You'll find your frustrations there. And you anticipate traffic because, well, it's always there at this time. What if it wasn't? What if you took a different route? Maybe you anticipate it because you don't change the route you take. And I'm saying that for life in general. So this is my cue for you. Take the road less traveled, even if nobody else is going on along with it, you for the ride. Because you going on your own ride will afford you more experiences and more people to share it with. So much love. I love you all, and I look forward to the next one. Again, you be you. That's all you can do, and be true to that too.